I'm watching Sunday afternoon programme on the news, on the TV, and it's called The Refugees, and it's about the kids, well, it's not just the kids, the people in London during the Second World War. And so it skips between the parents that are still living in London, and this is the dad, and he's a fire watcher, and the mum's at home hiding downstairs in the cellar. And as you can see, this young boy's just died. And the children have all been sent off on trains out into the countryside. There's a couple of them there, and they've all been sent off out into the countryside as refugees, which is exactly what happened to my mum and a lot of other kids. My mum's a twin.
Work a few days owing to an accidental fire at the factory. Someone must have dropped a cigarette end or something. So to get some extra pennies and get the war over quicker, I've stayed to do some overtime. I hope you didn't mind.
Their mum was going to come and visit them,
but
they didn't. They're been sent to the countryside outside Preston. And just reminds me of my mum telling us about her life when she was a kid, because she was 6 years old when the war started, and she ended up living in a place called St Neots. It was called Little Barford Road, which is St Neots, and it was Huntington at the time, but now it's Cambridgeshire. And it was right next to the St Neots power station, in a little cottage with Auntie and Uncle, Mr. and Mrs. Ambrose. And Auntie was a housewife in this little cottage that never had any electricity and only had one cold tap that was in the yard. And the toilet was at the back of next to the pigsty, which was a big drum with a wooden lid on it that you sat on. And Uncle worked in the power station, St Neots power station, and she stayed in touch with them all her life, and they became our auntie and uncle. And I had some, well, we all did, had some great times there.
Chickens of my own. Mrs. Mill, is it my fault? Mr. Großwein, I want a dozen. I knew your father overshot with no dochas in his reason.
And she used to tell us loads of things about.
Pass me your ration. I'll explain.
About what life was like.
That's your identity card. I want your ration.
It's a bit like my grandchildren always saying to me, Nan, tell us about this and tell us about that. And I'll tell them about when we used to go and stay at Auntie and Uncle's. And up until until they moved out of the cottage in the 70s, they still had no electricity. They still had oil lamps. It was only because Uncle got ill that they got moved into town and stayed in a bungalow, and he died a few months later. But yeah, I'm writing a book about it. I've got loads of pictures. So that's the story that I'll tell you one day. Yeah, because just up the road from where I live, it's a major Jewish area. Stamford Hill. So that's the area that they're talking about. And now we're going through another war. I remember houses like this. There are still houses like this up in some places, but most of them got knocked down. I remember being a kid and playing in derelict houses like this before they knocked them down, and that was in the late 60s. Yeah, I'll tell you that story. It's a really lovely story about Auntie and Uncle. They were lovely people.
What about ice?
And we used to love her stories that she told us. Sit there for hours listening to her.
I know. Silly story. What's that?
And there was twins. My mum was called Jean, and my uncle, her twin brother, was called Ronnie. I was born in 1933.
sentence, and then he folds it over and passes it to the next one.
They're both
The
dead
idea
now.
of the game, Bob.
You know, they died a year between each other
Both finished.
on the same
Read it
week.
all out, and it makes a silly story, and we all laugh.
I'll show you. I'll show you.
Now, wait a minute.
Anyway, I feel shattered from yesterday. Getting on trains, up and down stairs, walking around Trafalgar Square. I had a great time talking to loads and loads and loads and loads of people. We didn't actually do the march because everyone was shattered and I couldn't walk that far. So we all ended up in a cafe. Well, they ended up in a cafe. I sat outside because it was too packed in there and too hot. And while sitting outside, a lady sitting on the table next to me started talking to me. A lady from
Oh, blimey.
London. Maureen, her name was, and she started talking to me. She was in her 40s, and she was telling me how her boy was taken away from her when he was 6 years old, taken by the social services, and that he was going to be 17 next week, and and how it's mentally damaged her all these years. She was pushing a baby's pram around. I mean, to be perfectly honest, talking to her, you could tell that it had mentally damaged her. But what a nice lady. What a nice lady. I gave her my phone number,
Now it's Mummy's then.
just in case she ever needs anyone to talk to.
Read it.
But she was talking to me for ages. But it's lovely. And I met loads of people, loads of really nice people. Really nice people. Yeah, I had a great time. Anyway, I'll tell you this story about the refugees and my mum's story. And if ever you get the opportunity to watch this programme, it's called The Refugees. And it's a depiction of what it was like in London during the Second World War. And of course, we're going through a war now, but this is a silent war we're going through. And do you know what, you parents, you grandparents, you need to be warriors. You really need to get out there on the streets. I mean, I'm told that Berlin, there was over 2 million people on the streets. And yesterday in Trafalgar Square, there was thousands of people. It was absolutely fantastic to be part of that, you know. And I intend to go on as many marches as possible. I did take the wheelchair with me, which came in handy. And my friend's husband pushed me about a couple of times, but where I just can't breathe properly. I can't walk because of breathing. But yeah, and I ache now. Oh my God, I ache. But and Kobe was a good dog. He was at home on his own all day long. Put loads of food down for him, loads of water. And I got home, he's never chewed anything. My dog has never, ever, right from a puppy, I've never had him chew anything indoors. He's just a fantastic dog. Never pooed indoors, never weed indoors. And as soon as I got home, he was really pleased to see me. We took him out for a walk, done his thing. Yeah, lovely.
Emma's.
Lovely. Good boy. He's over there, look. Oh, and I got this lovely chest off of my friend. She refurbishes furniture. Look at that. Isn't that nice? No, she refurbishes furniture. So, look at that. I'll shrink it down a bit. Isn't that nice? It's just a tatty old box. And she paints it up and does deputier, whatever it's called, on it. She put loads of birds on it for me. And I've ordered some other bits of furniture off of her. I love it. I was thinking of getting the kids a box each, something that they can take through their life, and then fill it up with all of their family photos. Anyway, there you go. I actually remember bits of London looking like that when I was a kid in the 60s. Playing in the derelict houses. Anyway, love you lots. Love yourselves more. Speak to you soon. Love yourselves. Bye bye.